Readers don't search for genres, they search for tropes. If your book says enemies to lovers, you just double the sales. If a friend recommends a novel, we usually ask, what's it about? And 9 times out of 10, the answer includes not just the genre, but the tropes. Enemies to lovers, found family, the chosen one. These are the patterns we recognize and the hooks that pull us in. Every reader has a few go-to tropes that they enjoy. Some people love variety, others know what they like and stick with it. In this video, I'm gonna talk all about tropes. We're gonna discuss what they are, if they're good or bad, and list some common tropes for different genres. Of course, these tropes also applies to movies. After this video, you are guaranteed to get a new perspective on your favorite movie or book and be able to spot the tropes that are being used in the story. The article and everything else is linked down below in the description. So let's get into it. Literary tropes versus genre tropes. Before we dive into the list, let's clear up one thing. When I say tropes, I'm not talking about literary devices. These are important, sure, but that's not what we're focused on here. We're talking about genre tropes. These are the kind of patterns and story elements readers recognize and gravitate toward. A trope might be a type of character, a familiar plot twist, a theme, or even a setup like a small town with a big secret. Whether you realize it or not, you're probably already using tropes in your writing, if you are writing a book. We all do. That's why it helps to study them. The more you understand which tropes show up in your genre and why readers love them, the more intentionally you can use them in your own stories. You can lean into them, twist them, or subvert them, but at least you'll be doing it on purpose. So are tropes good or bad? Some people like to bash tropes, as if using one means your story is lazy or predictable. But the truth is, tropes exist for a reason. Readers recognize them, they expect them, and when used well, they love them. That doesn't mean you should grab the first trope you spot and plug it into your story without a second thought. As a writer, your job is to strike a balance. You want your story to feel familiar enough to fit the genre, but original enough to stand out. Tropes evolve over time. They shift with reader expectations. And that evolution happens because writers take the old and give it a fresh spin, or invent something new that becomes the next popular trope. So when I read the list, don't think of these as good or bad. It's not the trope itself that matters, it's what you do with it. So here's the complete list of book tropes. Many tropes work across multiple genres. Just because something shows up under romance or thriller doesn't mean it can't be used in sci-fi or fantasy. Some of the most successful books take familiar tropes and twist them in unexpected ways. That's the sweet spot, giving readers something that feels both familiar and fresh. Mixing tropes from different genres is a great way to do that. Just be sure to research what your audience expects. Certain tropes are basically required. For example, if you're writing romance, readers expect a happily ever after, or at least happy for now. Action and adventure tropes. Action and adventure tropes can also be found in fantasy, thriller, mystery, and science fiction stories, such as hidden treasure, puzzle solving, exotic locations, unbreakable codes that are broken by the protagonist, ancient secrets, and high action. The action is what readers come for, so it's important to have plenty of it, from explosions and gunfights to car chases and hand-to-hand combat. The larger-than-life threats. A city, a country, or the whole world will blow up if the protagonist fails. Military exploits. Military thrillers are often found in both action, adventure, and thriller genres. Often, these novels will follow a small group of professional soldiers. The love interest. There almost always is one, and it usually helps drive the plot. Linear plot lines, black and white morality, the MacGuffin, an object that acts as a plot device to move the story along. The hero must find the MacGuffin or MacGuffins before the villain does in order to save the world. The double cross. A trusted ally or side character turns out to be working for the enemy. The bad guys who can't aim. No matter how many shots they fire at the hero, he never gets hit. Children's book tropes. Children's books aim to impart a lesson to the little readers. But there are some common tropes that work well in these shorter stories, such as talking animals, the power of friendship, appreciating our differences, anything from race to preferences to religious differences. The defective animal, a hurt or deformed animal that needs to be cared for. Dealing with adversity, often the protagonist fails twice and then gets it right on the third attempt. Learning a new skill, learning about family, usually a new sibling, learning to share, loyalty, dedication, dealing with anger or any other powerful emotion, going to school, the power of imagination, the power of teamwork, compassion, courage, bravery, honesty, growing up and dealing with loss. Contemporary fiction. Contemporary fiction stories don't fit nicely into popular fiction genres. This is largely because the tropes are often hard to identify or non-existent. But there are a few you'll often see in these literary fiction books, such as it's set in the modern day, conflict comes from interpersonal relationships, family drama, coming of age, dealing with mental illness or addiction, unresolved endings are common, lack of common plot structure, no otherworldly elements, a death in the family. Fantasy. So if you watched any of the Lord of the Rings movies or read any of the books, you can probably name a few common fantasy tropes. The hero's journey is a plot structure popularized by Joseph Campbell that's often used in fantasy stories, sometimes called a quest. Side quests. While on the way to accomplish their main goal, the characters get sidetracked or split up to accomplish smaller goals, so they can then tackle their larger goal. Medieval adjacent setting. Without all the magic, it could be Europe during the Middle Ages. The chosen one. A protagonist that's prophesized to be the savior of Earth, or whatever fictional world the story is set on. The evil one. A larger-than-life villain that usually has immense supernatural powers, often a wizard, witch, or warlock. The mentor. An older character who helps the protagonist along on his or her journey, sometimes a good wizard, witch, or warlock. Powerful artifacts. Swords, talismans, staffs, rings, etc. These items are powerful, and everyone wants them. Magical creatures. Epic storylines with lots of characters. This is often expected, especially in high fantasy. High stakes, so good versus evil. Heir to the throne. The character may not want the throne or even know that he or she is the heir, but by the end of the story they usually take their rightful place as a benevolent ruler. Best of the best. Whether the protagonist or antagonist, or both, these characters prove themselves to be the best at whatever skills they have. Unlikely allies. When the hero is forced to trust one of their enemies to save the day. The reluctant hero. When the protagonist just wants to be left alone, but is pulled into the adventure anyway. Rescued by the cavalry. Sometimes this is an actual army riding over the ridge. Other times it's an ally showing up at just the right time. The damsel in distress. It's not as popular these days, but still used on occasion. The training sequence, where the reluctant hero learns to fight, harness magic, use his new knowledge, or all of the above. Paying the price. Victory doesn't come easily for the protagonist in fantasy stories. There's usually a price to pay. Historical fiction. Now, historical fiction in this case is not primarily romance. That is, there can be a romance subplot, but it's not the main storyline. These are all pretty self-explanatory. War. Often set during World War II, set in colonial America, combining real and fictional events, including historical figures as characters, religious themes, social and political turmoil, dual timeline, so one in the past and one in the present, traveling long distances like moving to the West Coast during the 18th century, and what life was like, showing the everyday life of people in historical settings. Horror. Horror books comes in all shapes and sizes, but there are certain tropes that readers love or love to hate. Here are some of the biggest ones. Mysterious things are happening, and usually people are dying because of them. Cursed items. From books to dolls to religious trinkets, there's often something that's cursed. Monsters. There are plenty to choose from. Or you can even invent your own. Aliens. Abductions, invasions, awakenings. It's all rife with terror. Glowing eyes. They usually appear in the darkness at a time of great tension. Humans can be evil. Not all monsters look gruesome. Some live next door. Bad things happen at night, rarely in the daytime. Paralyzed with fear, when a character can't move, speak, or scream. The Antichrist. Bad news for the world. Cults and religious extremists, often trying to unleash demons or the Antichrist. Backing into darkness. You can bet there's something lurking there. Traumatic past. May help the character deal with the traumatic present. The minority character dies first. Perhaps this one is a good one to subvert. Severed limbs. Usually found by other characters. Losing the ability to run. When a character trips at the exact wrong time. Easily definable characters. The mean jock, the promiscuous girl, the alcoholic cop, etc. Otherwise known as character archetypes. Karmic retribution. In a lot of horror stories, karma is swift in taking out those who do evil. A deal with the devil, creepy settings, abandoned places, graveyards, forests, etc. The unhappy ending. This is one of the few genres where you could possibly get away with killing your protagonist off, if done right. The world is ending and defeated monsters that comes back to life, right at the end of the book. Literary. Although a broad category encompassing books that don't fit well into other genres, there are some common tropes in literary fiction. Flowery writing matters more than plot. Many readers seek these books out for a certain feeling or experience related to the writing itself rather than the plot. Childhood memories. Dealing with childhood trauma is common in literary fiction. Set in a small town, major characters killed off, there's no guarantee of a happy ending in this broad genre. That means that even major characters can die. Dysfunctional family. Once again, plot isn't a major concern. Many of these books end ambiguously or abruptly. Mystery. A good mystery pulls the reader along, asking them to solve the case before the protagonist does. There are common tropes that most readers expect when they pick up a mystery. The unlikable victim. Common in cozy mysteries, the unlikable victim is someone who was an all-around jerk, but their killer still must be brought to justice. The problem is, everyone has a motive. The red herring. This is the character who we are led to believe is the killer, but it's a misdirection. This can also be a clue that points in the wrong direction. Close quarters. Whether the setting is a train, a boat, or a mansion during a bad storm, it's common for all these suspects to be in close quarters, while the detective tries to unravel the mystery. The alibi. Just when the protagonist thought that they had the killer, an airtight alibi comes to light. Outsmarting the criminal. When the protagonist hatches a brilliant plan to get the criminal to confess. The trophy. When the killer keeps evidence that turns out to be his or her undoing. The protagonist is a suspect. What happens when the detective, amateur or professional, is the number one suspect? Lots of tension, that's what. Righting past wrongs. It's common for the protagonist to take a case that directly or indirectly relates to a previous failure. They get a second chance to right their past wrong. When a character holds back information for some reason until revealing it in the most dramatic fashion possible. A detective with a haunted past. Consulting a criminal. When one criminal, usually already caught, is consulted to glean information to catch the protagonist. Amnesia. Your main character can't remember who they are or can't recall vital information pertaining to the case. Twist ending. Many readers love a good twist ending at the end of a mystery. Romance. With so many romance subgenres, there are plenty of popular tropes to choose from. Most romance novels have several of the following tropes in them. Happy ending, the most popular and important romance trope on the list. The love triangle, 3 characters, 1 choice, and some unavoidable hurt feelings. Love triangles make for plenty of tension. Forced proximity, 2 characters who find love when they're forced to spend time together. Forbidden love, Romeo and Juliet but without the tragic ending, and made with the modern romance reader in mind. The enemies to lovers trope. The characters start out hating each other, but true love prevails, often combined with the forced proximity trope. Fake relationship. 1 character ropes another into posing as their partner, often to get a nagging relative off their back. But what starts out as a pretend soon turns serious in this popular trope. The other woman or the other man. Now be careful with this one. No one likes a cheater, which is why there's often some legitimate reason for being unfaithful to the partner. Incapable of love. That character who has been hurt so bad they've given up on love. Until now. Love is the answer. It doesn't matter what the question is. The pure and the promiscuous. 1 character, often a female, is inexperienced in the ways of love. The other, often a male, is overly experienced. You know the rest. Perhaps a trope that's antiquated and certainly problematic in today's culture. Love at first glimpse. Insta-love. The characters don't need to get to know each other to see if they're compatible. They fall in love without even talking. The rest of the story is usually a will they, won't they plotline. Marriage of convenience. There's no love between this couple, at least not at first, but as the two get to know each other, they soon discover the sparks. Unexpected love interest. While the protagonist goes on date after date with the wrong people, their friend is always there for support. Pretty soon, the main character realizes that the friend is the one they've loved all along. Fated mates. In the paranormal romance genre, the fated mates trope is where 2 soulmates, one usually a shifter, find each other and things soon get steamy. The misunderstanding. It's not all sunshine and rainbows in romance stories. There needs to be a conflict that comes to a head near the end of the book. This conflict is often predicated on a simple misunderstanding. This is one trope that many romance readers feel is overused. Science fiction. Science fiction stories can take place in the not too distant future or a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. No matter when and where the story is set, there are certain tropes that readers look for, such as artificial intelligence. Given the recent headlines, it's no surprise that this trope is still going strong. AI can be helpful or hurtful in the story, but it's a staple of many a sci-fi story. Dystopian. Totalitarian governments and post-apocalyptic hellscapes make the backdrop for many dystopian stories. Often, the story involves the protagonist toppling the oppressive system. Time travel. Enough said. Space travel. Humans aren't meant to live in space. It's dangerous and lots can go wrong. Aliens. Like artificial intelligence, aliens can be allies, enemies, or even main characters. First Contact is a sci-fi subgenre about humanity's first contact with aliens. Alternate dimensions or universes. Doesn't have to be done just with superheroes. Nanotech. Little robots that do crazy things. Implants. Changes to human bodies that give strange abilities. Power and technology. People want to use technology for evil, while others try to stop them and use it for good. End of human race. Unless the characters survive and procreate. The ticking clock. The sun will explode or the engines will fail, or the asteroid will hit at a certain time. Downloading people. When the technology exists to have one's consciousness downloaded. Body switching. When characters can inhabit bodies other than their own. Army of clones. Destroying the universe. When a malevolent being wants to kill everything. Dangers of cryo sleep. A lot can go wrong when you sleep for decades. Now let's move on to thriller and suspense. Thriller and suspense tropes are often found in action and adventure, mystery, science fiction, and even fantasy stories. The ticking clock. There's often a race against time in thrillers that adds suspense. Troubled protagonist, often a character with a background in law enforcement or the military. The protagonist is flawed and deeply troubled. All he or she has is the case or the mission. The unreliable narrator, most common in psychological suspense or thrillers. The unreliable narrator often lies to the reader or tells half-truths. This can help with the next trope on the list. The twist ending. A good twist ending is hard to pull off, but you can do it with a careful hand. It helps to have red herrings and an unreliable narrator. The insurmountable odds. Unlike mysteries, thrillers often make no mystery as to who the villain is. The tension comes in the seemingly impossible odds the main character faces. How will they ever defeat the antagonist? And will they die in the process? High stakes. At the very least, the protagonist's life is at stake. To raise the tension, put other people's lives at stake, and lots of them. Exotic locations. Not every thriller needs to be a globe-trotting adventure, but many of them are. The main character often has to go to well-known cities around the world to stop the villain. The cliffhanger. Much of the time at the end of a chapter, but sometimes at the end of a book. Missing children or spouses. Gaslighting. Often a theme in psychological suspense. The stalker. The frame-up. Often ties in with the protagonist being suspected of the crime. Crime in the family, when someone close to the protagonist commits a crime. Now let's move on to young adults. Young adult novels, like Harry Potter or The Hunger Games, use different genres and tropes to tell their stories. Still, there are some common tropes you'll often see in these books, no matter what the genre. The outsider. The protagonist is often an outsider, going against the grain and preferring to do things their own way. The first love. Young love is a common theme in these novels. It can be a subplot or even the driving force of the novel. Love is the answer. It doesn't matter what the question is. Incapable of love. The character who has been hurt so badly they've given up on love. Until now. Useless or evil adults. It's no surprise that books written about teenagers often portray adults as incompetent or evil. This trope may be overused and ripe for subverting the reader's expectations. The chosen one. A protagonist that's prophesized to be the savior of Earth, or whatever fictional world the story is set on. Dark family secret. This trope can create tension and provide surprise. Discovering special powers. If the story is of a fantasy or paranormal type, this can happen to move the plot along. The missing or absent parents. This trope is often about getting the adults out of the picture to increase tension and allow the main characters to deal with issues without the help of their parents. So here's the conclusion. Tropes aren't good or bad on their own. They're tools. And like any tool, it all depends on how you use them. Sure, some people roll their eyes at common tropes, but readers search for them. They get excited when they find a favorite and will avoid books that miss the mark. That's why it's so important to read widely in your genre. Get to know the tropes your audience expects, then decide how you want to use them. Whether that means leaning in, adding a twist, or flipping them on their head. A familiar trope with a fresh take can go a long way toward turning a casual browser into a fan. That's gonna be everything for this video. If you're still here at the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Tell me in the comments down below what is your favorite trope and what is a trope you love to hate. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I post new videos on the 1st, 11th, and 21st of every month, so make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.